angle most people have not seen. Look at Jada's reaction.
Wow, dude. It was a G.I. Jane joke.
Keep my wife's name out your mouth.
I'm going to, okay?
Talking crazy out your face up on the stage and disrespect me on the stage. Expect me on the stage. Jokers dish shit out, cry foul when it's time to take it. City full of real ones, wasn't raised to fake.
Willie size already, getting jiggy with it. Getting jiggy with it. Getting jiggy with it. Getting jiggy with it. What? You on the ball with your kid? Watch your step, you might fall trying to do that.
Hi, Will. That was enjoyable. I had like a front row seat to that wonderful performance of
Yeah,
yours.
right? It was like you were like on stage.
On stage with you.
With me.
Like I was chosen.
The AIDS virus is a result of genetic warfare testing.
By American agents?
Absolutely.
Will, why
Am I
do
a
you-
conspiracy theorist? I'm a conspiracy theorist. All right.
A banned Will Smith interview just popped back up after being wiped from the airwaves for over 20 years. In it, Will straight up accused the U.S. government of spreading AIDS to wipe out black communities. And he wasn't sugarcoating it one bit. He dropped the bomb on camera, face-to-face with Barbara Walters in 1998, and a lot of folks think this was the last time we ever saw the real Will before they shut him down. That Will from '98 was sharp and fearless. He spoke loud about systemic racism and called out biological warfare like he knew exactly what he was risking. He even warned right there in the interview that once it aired, they would come after him. The man wasn't playing. Now jump to today. It's like we're looking at a different dude. From that infamous Oscar slap that turned him into a worldwide meme, to Jada's messy public drama, and that random music comeback nobody wanted, people are saying something changed Will for good. Some are calling it humiliation programming, while others think Will got straight up MK altered after that sit-down with Barbara Walters. And here's the wild part. This old interview clip didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It started spreading like crazy right after Will's recent bizarre stunts, like dropping a cringe new album critics roasted as one of the worst ever, and that weak diss track aimed at Chris Rock. What is really going on with Will these days? Right now, people are divided like never before. Some think Will's just spiraling from all the pressure, but most of his fans believe his mind has been torn apart by the same dark forces he warned us about back in the day. It's easy for folks to laugh it off and call it wild conspiracy talk, but only if you don't know your history. What Will said to Barbara Walters sounds nuts on the surface, but let's not forget real-life horrors like the Tuskegee experiment, where black men were used as lab rats by the U.S. government, or those declassified military documents showing experiments on black communities. There's even proof of white colonizers bragging about spreading AIDS to wipe out black Africans. These aren't theories, they're straight-up documented facts. So suddenly, that crazy Will Smith interview doesn't seem so crazy anymore. And we need to break down exactly what Will told Barbara Walters about AIDS, because if he was telling the truth, then the biggest question is, what happened to that Will? Who or what shut him up so completely? The old Barbara Walters interview, where Will claims the AIDS virus came from secret genetic warfare tests, is making waves all over again, and people can't stop talking about it. What do you think? Could he have been right all along? You could see it clear as day on Barbara Walters' face. She looked like she was dying to call Will paranoid without actually saying the words. She didn't bother challenging the facts he dropped. Instead, she just sat there making the whole vibe super awkward, like Will had broken some unspoken rule about what you're allowed to say on TV. Then, in a flash, she switched topics like nothing happened. But here's where things get downright spooky. This interview straight up vanished after it aired. It was never replayed on TV. No official clips were released, no promos, nothing. Even now, if you hop on YouTube and type Will Smith AIDS, you'll come up empty. You gotta know the exact words to search for. And even then, it's buried under piles of random videos. That alone should make you raise an eyebrow. And get this, Just 2 months after that tense Barbara Walters sit-down, Will did a total 180 in a December 1998 Rolling Stone interview. He started backtracking on everything. While he still admitted he believed AIDS came out of a lab, he switched up heavy, saying he never meant the government was aiming it at any group specifically. In that Rolling Stone chat, Will said, "I felt that AIDS was created as a result of biological warfare testing. I felt someone was messing around in a lab trying to make biological weapons and created AIDS. I wasn't saying it was aimed at a certain group. I said it just ended up spreading to them." That's a big shift, and it's got everyone wondering what made him change his tune so fast. But here's the scariest part. After that explosive interview, Will never brought this up again. He went totally silent on AIDS, stopped calling out the government, and it was like someone flipped a switch and shut him down overnight. Fans who grew up loving the old Will Smith are left scratching their heads, asking, what happened? Where's the man who dared to drop the truth live on national TV? Why is the Will we see now only making headlines for messy marriage drama and awkward interviews? It's like the bold, fearless Will disappeared, replaced by someone who can't stop getting dragged for personal scandals. This doesn't feel like a simple rebrand. It feels like a full-on reprogramming, like somebody got deep into his head. But before we unpack Will's shocking transformation and those wild rumors that some MK Ultra-style handlers got to him, let's dig into why his original claims about AIDS weren't as far-fetched as Barbara Walters tried to make them look. Because when you check the history books, the receipts are right there staring us in the face. Let's kick it off with the Tuskegee syphilis study, the one the government had to finally admit happened. For 40 years, from 1932 to 1972, the U.S. Public Health Service ran a twisted experiment on 600 black men in Alabama. They told these men they were getting treated for bad blood, but in reality, they were just being watched to see how untreated syphilis destroyed their bodies. How messed up is that? Back in 1932, the United States Public Health Service kicked off one of the most twisted experiments in history, the Tuskegee study. They rounded up 600 black men from Tuskegee, Alabama, telling them they'd get treatment for bad blood. But that was a straight-up lie. These men were never given real care. Even when penicillin became the standard cure, they left them suffering in silence. They dangled promises of free medical care to lure them in, but 2/3 of the men actually had syphilis, and not one got proper treatment. Over 100 men died slow, painful deaths. Some went blind. Worse yet, their wives and kids ended up infected, and nobody said a word until a brave whistleblower finally leaked the horror story to the press. How evil is that? So when Will said AIDS didn't just pop up by accident, that it felt like a weapon. He wasn't pulling ideas from thin air. He knew the kind of dark history he was referencing, and Tuskegee was just one example. There's plenty more where that came from, like the crack epidemic. You can't talk about government sabotage without bringing up how crack cocaine magically flooded black neighborhoods in the 80s. And everyone knows this wasn't just a drug crisis. It was economic warfare designed to tear communities apart overnight. Families were shattered, businesses collapsed, and entire neighborhoods crumbled into chaos. While the media was busy blasting black communities as dangerous criminals, the real story was way uglier. Declassified files and eyewitness stories later exposed deep ties between CIA operations and illegal drug trafficking in Central America. This shocking connection was blown wide open by journalist Gary Webb in his Dark Alliance series. But not before things got real dark for him. Webb died under super sketchy circumstances, supposedly by suicide. But get this, he had 2 gunshot wounds to the head. How does that even happen? And according to Chico Brown, who was the co-defendant of the real Freeway, Rick Ross, the CIA and mainstream media smeared Gary Webb's name before his investigation even saw daylight. They made sure he looked like a crackpot so nobody would take his bombshell findings seriously. That's how the game works when the truth threatens the system. So it's not crazy to see a pattern here. If they were ready to flood communities with drugs just to make a buck and keep control, why wouldn't they go even darker with biological weapons? This is exactly why what Will Smith said wasn't random speculation. He was connecting dots they've been desperate to bury. But it gets even scarier. There's another case that lines up directly with Will's claims from that Barbara Walters interview. In 2019, a Danish documentary called Cold Case Hammarskjöld dropped at Sundance, revealing how a white supremacist group, the South African Institute for Maritime Research, intentionally spread HIV among Black Africans during apartheid. These guys were linked to Western intelligence agencies, and their sick mission was straight-up population control. One member even confessed on camera that they injected HIV through vaccines to wipe people out. How insane is that? They wanted to wipe out Black people, plain and simple. So when Will dropped that bombshell on Barbara Walters, saying AIDS was cooked up as a weapon to destroy Black communities, he wasn't just spitballing. He was pulling from real, documented history that proves these kinds of evil plots happened before. Will's words weren't wild paranoia. They were a serious warning to anyone listening. But what really hits hard is how Will looked Barbara dead in the eye and said, "They're gonna chase me after this." That wasn't some offhand comment. He knew exactly what kind of line he'd just crossed. Will understood that telling the truth on national TV, especially about something this big, was like painting a target on his back. And judging by what happened to him afterwards, it's not crazy to think he was silenced, whether it was by fear, pressure, or something way darker, like a full-on MK Ultra mind game. Something definitely flipped. The Will Smith who spoke the raw, uncomfortable truth vanished, and in his place rose a polished megastar who never again touched real issues. It's got everyone wondering, did Will get forced to play along, or did he willingly sign a deal trading truth for fame and fortune? Either way, Will never spoke about his AIDS theory again. Not once. Looking back, it's clear his change didn't happen overnight, but the signs were flashing right after that explosive Barbara Walters interview. What really went down behind the scenes? Will's entire brand took a sharp turn. Gone was the raw, unfiltered Will who spoke his mind. In his place came the shiny Hollywood superstar, pumping out blockbuster hits and safe, boring sound bites. He became the industry's golden boy, the friendly, non-threatening Black lead everyone could market and keep apolitical. They stripped his edge, polished him up, and sold him back to us like a product. And for a while, Will played his new role perfectly. But it didn't take long before the cracks started to show. You'd catch him in these strange interviews where he sounded straight up robotic, repeating the same rehearsed line over and over. "I just want to spread love," like he was reading it off a script. It was eerie. Then came the non-stop oversharing, endless YouTube vlogs, cheesy motivational speeches, and way too much of his personal life online. It felt like he was desperately trying to keep the world distracted from something lurking underneath. And who could forget the whole red table circus? Watching him sit there getting roasted and humiliated by Jada, only for them to giggle about staying in a miserable marriage forever? That wasn't honesty. That was ritual humiliation blasted worldwide for everyone to see. It was brutal. Just when it looked like things couldn't get any wilder, the Oscars slap exploded onto live TV. Will completely snapped, smacking Chris Rock over a lame joke that he and Jada had literally laughed at seconds before. It was like watching a man come unglued in front of millions. The whole scene was so strange and out of character, it felt like Will was straight up programmed. And what came next made it all even weirder. The staged apology videos, the spiritual healing tour, and now a cringe diss track aimed at Chris Rock. Like Will's trying way too hard to claw his way back into music. Now everybody's saying the same thing. This is not the Will Smith we grew up loving. He doesn't look like a man in charge of his own story. He looks like someone being used and pulled like a puppet. It's like the Will who told Barbara Walters, "They're gonna chase me after this," didn't just disappear. He got replaced by this hollow version who's only allowed to speak when it benefits the people in power. And trust? This is just the tip of the iceberg. The deeper you dig into Will's timeline, the clearer it gets. The handlers pulling strings, the humiliating moments broadcast for the world, the creepy links to Diddy's twisted inner circle. It's all connected. And it's darker than anyone wants to admit. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and drop a comment below with what you think is really going on with Will Smith. See you in the next one.